I'm Sara.
And I'm Conrad Small.
And I'm Benton St. Clair. And today we will be discussing the issue of waste management in the United States. As a group, our research has been surrounded upon the question, is the landfill system an effective method of waste disposal?
We have explored three main lenses: the economic, the environmental, and the political lens. Through our research, we have discovered how much unnecessary waste is contributing to landfills.
55% of waste generated in the United States goes into landfills, while only 33% of it is recycled. This has created economic, environmental, and political problems for the U.S. We will explore the solutions to these problems through each of those respective lenses.
As a team, we have come up with three main solutions we think the United States must consider in order to relieve its issues.
First, we must reduce the total amount of waste generated throughout the country. Second, we must integrate the landfill system with other forms of waste management, such as recycling and incineration.
We must also create stricter government regulations regarding landfill collection in order to reduce stress on local landfills. Now, Benton will cover the economic problems concerning the current landfill system.
Sending waste to a landfill costs an average of only $88 per ton, making it the cheapest form of waste disposal, both to transport and to dispose of. Landfills do not require as much transportation of discarded goods as recycling plants do, nor do they require sorting of those goods before disposal. Landfills, however, do not provide any revenue to the governments which use them. When discarding a vast majority of waste into a landfill, a government is paying an average of $88 per ton worth of tax money to put trash into the ground. In recycling plants, the need to sort through the recycled waste costs the government money in the form of having to pay employees who run the plants. However, recycling plants do create local jobs, which can help to boost a city's overall economy. After waste has been sent through a recycling plant, the new materials created by the old trash can then be sold to provide revenue to the government. Now Conrad will discuss some of the environmental problems surrounding the landfill system.
This picture, taken in Bangladesh, stands as a warning to the environmental effects of unmanaged waste. Although landfills are designed to reduce pollution, they oftentimes have the opposite effect. According to Lynn Lands, an environmental activist and TV news reporter for the BBC, landfills can generate literally tons of pollution each year. There are three main forms of this pollution: air pollution, leachate, and even toxins. Air pollution consists of greenhouse gases created from the decomposition of waste, especially organic waste. Leachate comes when liquid gets into the landfill and speeds up the decomposition of most garbage. The leachate can then contaminate nearby waterways. Similarly, toxins from hazardous materials can escape the landfill and contaminate the surrounding environment. Now Sara will discuss some of the political aspects surrounding landfills.
There are two main political issues concerning waste management. First, strict federal regulations involving site location makes it difficult for state governments to construct new landfills. According to federal law, they must consider nearness to airports, wetlands, food plains, fault lines, and urban areas. These considerations make it nearly impossible for state governments to construct new landfill sites. Second, the federal government does not conform for individual state complexities, leaving state governments to make their own decisions. For example, more populated states deal with more waste. For instance, Hawaii deals with tourist waste as well as residential waste. Due to this problem, they have to transport recyclable materials to Asia. Currently, rather than reducing waste, the United States is merely spreading it out.
We will now explore in depth our proposed solutions.
First, we recognize the top 5 contributors to landfills. This graph shows that they are paper, food waste, yard trimmings, plastic, and metal.
3 of the 5, paper, plastic, and metal, are recyclable. This really stood out to us since our main solution involves limiting waste and integrating recycling as a more prominent method of waste disposal.
Since the landfill system is so economically friendly, it can be hard for a government to abandon it altogether. However, The detrimental environmental effects that come with the landfill system require a partial switch toward a solution that is eco-friendly. With these points in mind, the most sensible solution is to further integrate the recycling system with the landfill system. If we were to continue to rely on the landfill system, it would be an advantage of low cost of waste disposal, but at the expense of serious harm to the environment. However, the high costs associated with the recycling system prove it too much of a financial challenge for many governments to turn to. If we integrate the landfill system with the recycling system, meaning that we continue to send our waste to landfills only in a lesser concentration, and meaning that we implement the recycling system and increase awareness for recycling, we will do a great benefit to the environment by decreasing the volume of trash sent to landfills, while simultaneously causing little harm to the overall cost of waste management due to the low cost of disposal in landfills and the incoming revenue from the selling of recycled materials in recycling plants.
As I have explained earlier, landfills harm the environment, creating the need for alternative methods of waste disposal. Some of these alternatives include recycling, composting, incineration, and bacterial digestion. Recycling is by far the most well-known of the alternatives to landfills. It is the process of using waste to create new, useful goods. Recycling is a more industrial process and requires a special sinter. Composting is the process of collecting organic waste and putting it directly back into the ground to be naturally biodegraded. Composting is typically done from household to household. Incineration is the process of waste disposal by burning at high temperatures. It is not often utilized because it creates a lot of air pollution and can be very expensive. Bacterial digestion is the process of using different bacteria to digest all sorts of waste. It is not yet common because it is very expensive, not very well known, and it can be a very slow process. Out of all these options, recycling is by far the most developed and efficient. However, recycling needs to become much more common. The best way to implement recycling is to raise awareness about the problem and increase the opportunities for recycling. In order for this to work, more recycling centers must be built in order to lower the cost it takes to recycle.
Now we will look at the political solutions. First, we must limit landfill collection in order to ease the risk of using up space as well as dealing with complexities of building new sites. Second, we must reduce per capita waste. Third, we must organize waste into non-recyclable and recyclable materials so only a percentage is going to landfills. However, to make these changes, specific regulations must be implemented. State governments need to implement regulations involving separation, then a fine if citizens fail to comply. For example, Seattle has recently already implemented this solution. Second, the federal government must reduce allowance of waste into landfills. This would in turn force state governments to turn to other waste management besides landfills like recycling.
But most all solutions have some limitations. For example, landfills are attractive to governments with tight budgets, since landfills have been the standard for waste management for hundreds of years. Constructing new facilities and turning away from trusted landfills may be financially impossible for some regions.
Like all manufacturing plants, recycling plants create some pollution, specifically air pollution, from the machinery used inside the building. Landfills can also benefit some animals. They benefit scavengers specifically by providing an alternative food source, and birds by providing new materials for them to construct their nests.
Politically, changes can only be made when society complies. The change would also be extremely gradual, considering that the alteration is on a national level. In addition to this limitation, populated states will continue to deal with more waste, making it more difficult for them to comply to newly made regulations.
In general, landfills are only a temporary solution. They are necessary right now, but hopefully in the future, we can depend more on recycling. However, that shift will need to be extremely gradual due to the fact that it is so ingrained in our culture that we can just throw away things whenever we want.
Thank you.
Okay, Benton. How did your group decide to include Sarah's research perspective lens into the overall presentation?
Sara's research was mainly focused on the political lens of the landfill system. And in her research, she discovered that she mainly researched ways that the federal government and state governments alike can work together to create the best solution for a specific region. One of our solutions was to implement new federal regulations to control the amount of waste which we produce. And so by making that one of our solutions, we included Sara's political lens into the presentation.
Very nice. Okay. Sara, give one specific way that your thinking changed as a result of learning about Benton's findings.
So Benton's findings at first were mainly centered around recycling rather than landfills, and my thinking changed in that way to center my solution about recycling. Because we had trouble finding a lot of information about landfills, reading Benton's paper was especially helpful to me by learning that recycling, although it was more expensive, was a more effective solution to our overall problem.
And Conrad, reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem your group identified?
Overall, I would have to say Benton's paper. Out of all his research, I came to understand that recycling is actually a lot more expensive than landfilling is. Initially, I had preconceptions that they were about equal, but recycling was well less known about it. But after learning about Benton's research, it opened my eyes up to the fact that recycling is a lot more expensive, even though it might be better for the environment.